Go.
Alright, so I have a 3G phone here with a broken screen. These will be the same instructions to repair a 3GS phone with a broken screen. Alright, as you can see, it's pretty broken down here, so it's going to be a little hard to get open with the suction cup. When you purchase your replacement screen, make sure you get a good screwdriver and the suction cup tool. All that other stuff is really not necessary. Alright, so since this is all broken, the easiest thing to do is to get some packing tape, a little piece of packing tape, put it on top. Don't go over the button, the home button. Make sure that's on there real good. And then you're going to want to take out these two little screws at the bottom here. Alright, and then you want to apply your suction cup right above the home button. Make sure it's on there good. Now the phone's going to open this way, and there's cables along this side, so when you open it, you want to keep your finger over here. Grab the hook and just give it a pull. And you see it'll open pretty easy. You don't want to force it. It should open pretty easy. And as you can see, there's cables. One unplugged automatically. It shouldn't really do that, but if it does, this cable labeled 1 and the cable labeled 2, they both pop on. Number 3 has a little connector it goes in. There's a little black tab across the bottom that you need to pop up. Just be real gentle popping that up. You can pop it up with a screwdriver. If they give you one of those green pry tools, you can use that. And once it's straight up in the air, you can just push this cable back. And now the screen is off the base. Alright, so now you need to remove your LCD unless you purchased the complete kit. So there are 3 screws across here. There'll be one behind this tape, which you can just pry off. It's not really necessary to have. There isn't one. There's 2 on this side. There's 1 here. And then there's 1 here. This tape needs to be removed. One here and 1 here. So let's start with taking this one out. Alright, now once you got all your screws out, if you've watched any other videos on YouTube, there's all different ways to take this out. People have all different methods. The easiest way to do it is to get a fingernail in on this side, fingernail in on both sides, and then just get your other finger and just pry it up. Comes up fairly easy. There's little clips on the side, which is why you need to pry it out. Once you have it up like this, don't yank it off. It has to be slid out from under that black tab. Alright, so now your new digitizer screen is just the screen, unless you bought the bezel. If you bought the bezel, then you just need to screw it back on. There's a bunch of different ways to remove this glass, which is glued to the plastic. Everybody will tell you a hair dryer, everything under the sun. I put mine in the toaster oven on approximately to keep warm for about 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I put it face down. I put it on the broil option. I put a little tin foil underneath it. And then I will show you after it's warmed up how we're going to remove that. Alright, so like I said before, best way I've found is use my toaster oven to warm that plastic up, to loosen up that glue. This is a Hamilton Beach cheap toaster oven. I put it right in between the K and the E on keep warm, and I put it on the broil setting so it heats from the top. This has been in here about 7 minutes now, so if you've paused the video, heated your thing up, or you're still watching through, let me show you what you do. Alright, you may need some like little cotton gloves for this or whatever. I have kind of rough hands, so I'm okay. It's pretty warm. Grab it from the center, and then grab the sides, and you kind of just want to peel away. Alright, it loosens up pretty fast. This also gets pretty hot pretty fast, so I'm going to keep it moving in my hands. You may not get it all off on the first try. If you don't, you don't. You have to reheat it a second time. Not a problem. Now I got this whole side off. This is the side with the home button, and it's also the side that's the most broken. So let's try from the corner that's not broken as much. Alright, now this is pretty much cooled down. As you can see, I'm going to break this if I keep pulling. So I'm going to go ahead and heat this back up for about another 4 minutes, and I'll get back to you on your video. Alright, so it's been about 4.5 minutes. Let's see if we can get that other side undone. Alright, so we're still all loose on this side here. And like I said, we're going to start at the side that has the least amount cracked. If you have a really broken screen, it'll be a little more difficult. As you can see, it's moving along pretty well. You got to be real careful when you get by the home button. There's not a lot of plastic to pull from. It can break very easy, so just be very careful. Alright, and it's off. Just going to bend this back while it's still a little soft. You can lay it down on a hard surface. Alright, and in a few minutes I'll show you how to put it back together. Alright, so this was an original screen. It was never replaced before. All the glue came off with the screen, which really works good. Most of the time you heat it up with a blow dryer or heat gun or whatever. A lot of other things happen. The glue sticks to here, home button melts, the home button still works nice. The only thing you got to make sure when you do it this way is that the vent over the earpiece stays on okay, and other than that, this looks undamaged. A nice rubber seal around the side is undamaged. Alright, so now I have no glue on here, which is real nice. It came off real good. If you have glue, just get a razor blade, try to scrape that glue off. Just be real careful of the earpiece and these little sensors here, this cable over here, and the home button. Alright, so your kit, you should have gotten double-sided tape. Try to buy a kit that's 3M tape. Even the 3M tape is hard to work with, so I would not suggest that you buy something that doesn't say 3M on it. Alright, so I'm going to put the top on first. Just go ahead and peel these off, make sure that you get the whole thing. I found the 3M's a lot easier to peel off, especially if it's from a decent seller. I always put the top on first. I get it in the corner. I'll just roll it on here. Now most of the time I always feel that these are always a little bigger than they need to be. So I go ahead and I just really rub it in the corners with the screwdriver so it's nice and tight and I'll have no problems when I go to put the new screen on. I just rub it all down. Just make sure you don't break any of those sensors or knock anything off. And I'll go ahead and put the bottom on. Just when you put the bottom on, there's really nothing on the bottom but the home button. But if you put this on the home button, it's going to stick and you're going to have problems. So be real careful, make sure you get it real tight in the corner from where you start. And then I do the same thing. I just rub it all in. And you can see I'm a little crooked on here. This isn't right to the edge. That's not going to cause a problem at all. now this is what I feel is the hardest part, is getting the second side of the double-sided tape off. Most of the time I try to grab it from one of these corners with the screwdriver, the flathead screwdriver. I try to peel it back. It normally messes up the tape in the corner a little bit, but it's never caused me a problem. Alright, so I got that started. And I'll just go ahead and peel that off. And I'll take my screwdriver and I'll just fix that little corner that I messed up. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I do go from the edge, not the tabs that stick out in the center. Alright, now a bunch of different videos will show you a bunch of different ways of how to set this up so you don't have problems. First thing to do is make sure you take off all the plastic on the bottom. People don't realize it, but there's a plastic piece here, plastic piece up top, and a plastic piece over the screen. Alright, these cables are always a nuisance. Make sure they're bent real good in this way for when you set this up. I normally try to hold them. I always put the top on first. Some people tell you put the bottom on first so that the home button gets lined up, but if this is right in the corners where it should be, you don't really have a problem. Also, make sure this tab here for the top screen doesn't get caught underneath. Alright, so I have the top corner in. I'm just going to guide this back down right over the home button and make sure it's real squared up. Alright, so now that's on. Hey, lay it down against a hard table. Wood table, anything is fine. Just as long as make sure it's flat or you're going to crack your thing. You're going to crack the digitizer. Just make sure this is all pushed in good so that that new tape is really suction cupped itself on there. That adhesive is nice and good. Make sure you're along your edges, you don't have anything caught up along the edges here where the brackets are on both sides. Just run your hands over it, you'll feel if it's sticking up. And when you're pushing down, there's two little contacts here for the home button. Make sure that you don't break those off, and try not to bend any of this stuff on the top. Alright, so now that that's all back on, I just make sure it feels real good. The more time you spend with it, the better off you'll be at the end. Alright, so now the digitizer's got some dirt on it just from age. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a lens wipe from my bathroom and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got a lens wipe here. These are available at Walmart for like a box of 50 of them. It's like $3. They work pretty good. They don't leave much residue, so I use them a lot. It turns out better at the end for me. First thing I do is wipe down the screen. If there's any big stuff on there, try to blow it off first so that you don't scratch it. Alright, I'll just let that dry. Now you probably got some fingerprints on here from putting it together. I always wipe this down the best I can. Try to work around that tab, don't break it off. Alright, so this is pretty much dry. Nice to see two specks of dirt on here. And alright, they're both off. Alright, so this looks good. It's still a little wet. This here, I hold it up to the light and look through it to make sure that there's no fingerprints on the inside or dirt that I can see. Alright, so this looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and reinsert this. First thing you have to do is make sure you got it in the right direction. Make sure this tab is facing the hole that you took the screw out of it. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to make sure our tabs are lined up. We want to glide this back in. So get the front started right about here. Make sure these tabs are down, out of the way. Make sure you're clearing the black tab and it should go in fairly easy. Alright, now we want to make sure it clips in on the sides. Remember, this is an LCD, you don't want to force anything. Anything that doesn't go down easy by itself, there's clips in here. Just bend the clips back. Now when I say clips, I mean the part of the frame that's on the digitizer. Alright, so that's all back down. Make sure this little black part is inside its little peg. And I'm going to go ahead and put the screws back in on the sides. And I didn't mention it before, but if you didn't get a magnetized screwdriver, it really helps if you run it by a magnet on your fridge or wherever you have a magnet. This way it holds those screws in. It won't do any damage to any of your components. And don't forget, there's 5 screws that go on the side. There's 1 screw that goes on the bottom here. Alright, so I got all 6 screws back in. Now I don't have a broken digitizer. Once you have the LCD screen back in, it really firmens up everything. So just run your hands along here and make sure everything feels like it's nice down and that adhesive is holding everything good. Alright, so now you got your new cables. You have your old cable. You have one of your new cables. And then you have this one that pushes in with the little black tab. Alright, these are real hard to first initially get in a condition where they work easily. So you just have to work with it. Alright, most important thing here, you're going to put this back together. Cable number 3 slides back into the holder. The easiest thing to do is give this a little bend. So it's on a little bit of a hook. Kind of let its own weight guide it back in. Before you put it in, make sure this tab here is folded back. You don't want it to stick out of the case or get caught on anything. So I'm going to go ahead and guide this in. Once you get it in, just give it a little wiggle left and right. Be very gentle with it. Try to give it a little push with a screwdriver. Just make sure it's in there. Sometimes they go in pretty far without having too many problems. Alright. Once it looks like it's in there, just, wherever it came out of, just close that tab back down, that black tab. And then you want to put in number 2. Which is now not labeled because that's your new digitizer. And these are a little hard to first figure out how they get back in there, but just don't push too hard, you'll feel them snap back in. And let me put number 1 back in. Number 1 is the one that originally popped off, so I gotta close this a little bit so that I know what's on. And then you want to guide your back end. I didn't take the top screen off, but if you feel it's going to be a nuisance, you could have done it. Got this tab in the way. Now it's out of the way. Just want to push it all back down. Make sure it's all closed up all nice. Put my 2 bottom screws in. And working digitizer. So I pull this off. I got a brand new screen. Everything works as it should. And this phone's not activated yet, so I have to run it through on iTunes to make sure it all works. and you know, just give it a good rub down. Don't rub too hard. Make sure it's all heated nice. And then once you're all done, if you're going to sell this phone at this point or whatever, you can wipe the whole phone down with one of those lens wipes, and it comes out real nice. Alright, thanks for watching my video.